The Last Tenant. The first thing Detective Maria Cross noticed about apartment 4B wasn't the blood. It was the smell of fresh paint over something that had been dead for weeks. She stood in the doorway, gloved hand resting on the frame, and let her eyes move slowly across the room the way her old partner had taught her. Never rush the first look, because the first look is the only one you get before your mind starts filling in gaps that aren't there. The walls were a clean, cheap white. Too clean. Someone had painted over them recently, and badly. She could see faint ridges where a roller had dragged over something raised beneath the surface. "Landlord says the place has been empty for 2 months, said Officer Reyes, flipping through his notebook. Previous tenant, a woman named Elena Voss, skipped out on rent. No forwarding address. And the smell. Exterminator was supposed to come. Guy never showed." Maria crouched by the baseboard, where the paint had bubbled slightly, and pressed her thumb against it. It gave, soft and wet beneath a skin of dried latex. She peeled a strip back with her pocket knife. Dried blood. A lot of it. Painted over. "Get forensics in here," she said quietly, "and pull everything you can find on Elena Voss. I want to know who this woman was, and I want to know who painted this wall after she left." 3 days later, Maria sat across from Elena Voss's former landlord, a nervous man named Gerald Kimura who kept wiping his palms on his trousers like he could scrub something off them that wasn't there. "She was quiet," he said. "Paid on time, mostly. Then about 2 months ago she just stopped answering. I figured she'd skipped out. People do that. I went in to check on the unit and it was empty. Furniture gone. Just needed a fresh coat of paint before the next tenant." "You painted it yourself?" "I hired someone. Cash job. Guy called himself Danny. No last name, no receipt. I know how that sounds." Kimura's eyes flicked to the door, like he was measuring the distance to it. "Look, detective, I didn't know that there was anything under those walls. I swear to God." Maria studied him for a long moment. Liars had a rhythm, a practiced smoothness. Kimura wasn't smooth. He was scared, and scared people usually told the truth, even when the truth made them look like fools. "Tell me about Danny." "Big guy. Quiet. Had a tattoo on his forearm. A black bird, I think, wing spread. He worked fast. Too fast, now that I think about it. Whole apartment done in a day." A blackbird tattoo. Maria wrote it down, though something cold had already settled in her stomach, a memory trying to surface, like a shape moving under ice. The forensic report came back on a Thursday evening, while rain hammered the precinct windows hard enough to rattle the glass. Maria read it twice before she let herself believe it. The blood behind the wall wasn't Elena Voss's. It belonged to a woman named Priya Anand, a nurse who had gone missing 8 months earlier, in a case that had gone cold before Maria ever touched it. Priya's file was thin, almost insultingly so. A missing persons report, a cursory interview with a boyfriend who'd since moved out of state, and nothing else. No body. No leads. Case closed for lack of evidence, tucked away in a drawer like something too uncomfortable to keep looking at. And there, in the boyfriend's interview transcript, a single detail that made the hair on Maria's arms rise. Boyfriend states victim had recently taken on informal handyman painting work through a local classified site to supplement her nursing income. Describes as cash jobs, nothing official. Maria sat back in her chair. The pieces weren't fitting together into a picture yet. They were fitting together into a shape, and the shape had teeth. She pulled up the classified site that night, scrolling through months of archive handyman postings until she found it. A listing from 10 months back, offering affordable painting and light repair, cash only, fast turnaround, with a photo of a forearm resting on a paint can. A blackbird tattoo, wings spread across the wrist. The same tattoo Kimura had described. Posted under the name Elena Voss. Maria didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table with 2 case files spread in front of her. Priya Anand, missing 8 months, blood found behind a wall painted over by Danny. And Elena Voss, tenant of that same apartment, vanished 2 months ago, whose name was somehow attached to a painting listing with a tattoo that didn't belong to a woman at all. By 4 in the morning, she had a theory she didn't want to believe. Elena Voss and Danny were the same person. Or Elena Voss had never existed as a real tenant. Just a name used to rent an apartment where bodies could be disposed of, one wall at a time, before moving on to paint over the next. She drove to the city records office as soon as it opened. Elena Voss's rental application had been filed with a driver's license number. Maria ran it. The license had been issued 11 months ago, brand new, no prior address history, no employment record older than a year. A person who, on paper, had not existed before last spring. She ran the DMV photo against the missing persons database, cross-referencing bone structure the way the department's new facial recognition software allowed. It took 40 minutes. When the match populated on her screen, Maria felt the floor tilt slightly beneath her chair. Elena Voss's DMV photo was a match, an 82% confidence match, to a woman named Rosalind Marsh, reported missing 14 months ago from a town 300 miles north. Rosalind had vanished after leaving her job at a hardware store. Her employment file listed a specialty: custom paint mixing and interior finishing work. Someone was wearing dead women's names like coats. And whoever it was had been doing it for at least 14 months, moving from town to town, apartment to apartment, using a rotating identity to rent spaces, kill inside them, seal the evidence behind fresh paint, and vanish before anyone thought to look twice at a tenant who simply stopped paying rent. It wasn't sloppy. It was a system. Maria requested every cash job painter classified ad filed in the tri-state area over the past 2 years. The pattern, once she saw it, was almost elegant in its horror. A new identity would appear, rent an apartment under a woman's name, live there quietly for a few months, then post a handyman listing under male alias with a distinctive tattoo, the same one, every time, before vanishing. 3 months later, a new name. New apartment. Same tattoo. 9 identities. 9 apartments. And in at least 4 of them, follow-up inspection requests, complaints about smell, or unusually fast paint jobs before the next tenant moved in. She flagged all 9 addresses for forensic sweeps and secured warrants by midnight. The pattern also gave her something else: a mistake. Every classifieds listing had been posted from the same public library branch, 7 blocks from Maria's precinct, using the guest WI-FI terminal in the reading room. Cameras there kept 90 days of footage. If she moved fast enough, this month's identity might still be traceable. The library security footage was grainy, but Maria watched it 3 times before she was certain. A figure in a grey hooded jacket, sleeves pushed up, forearm resting on the terminal desk as they typed. A blackbird tattoo, wings spread, unmistakable even in the low resolution. The face was harder to make out, the hood, the angle of the camera, but not impossible. The lab enhanced it enough to run a match. The name that came back stopped Maria cold. Danny Kimura, 26 years old. Son of Gerald Kimura, the landlord who had hired a guy named Danny to paint over the blood in apartment 4B. Maria sat with that for a long moment, the pieces reassembling into something far worse than she'd first imagined. Gerald Kimura hadn't hired a stranger off the street. He'd hired his own son, and either didn't know what his son had done, or knew exactly, and had been helping cover it up, apartment after apartment, tenant after tenant, for over a year. She thought about the way Kimura's eyes had flicked toward the door during their interview. Not the fear of a man who suspected nothing. The fear of a man deciding, in real time, how much to say. They took Gerald Kimura in for a second interview that same night, but he was gone. His apartment cleared out in under 6 hours, drawers left open, closet doors hanging wide. He hadn't run because he was innocent. He'd run because he knew his son had finally been seen. Danny Kimura was found 4 days later, in a rented storage unit 2 counties over, surrounded by paint cans and a rolled top that forensics would later confirm had been used, more than once, to move a body. He didn't resist arrest. He didn't say much at all, not that first night, not in the weeks of interviews that followed. The only thing he offered, unprompted, sitting across the table from Maria under fluorescent light, was this: people stop looking once the walls are clean. That's all I ever needed. Clean walls. Gerald Kimura was picked up 11 days later trying to cross the northern border under a name that wasn't his own. He talked more than his son did, enough to confirm what Maria had already pieced together. He'd known for over a year. He'd told himself it was easier not to ask questions about the son who always needed a new cash job apartment to paint, who always worked fast, who always finished the job the same week a tenant seemed to vanish. 9 identities. At least 6 confirmed victims, their remains recovered from storage units, crawl spaces, and 1 shallow patch of ground behind a rental property Danny had painted the exterior of 8 months earlier. Investigators believed there could be more, towns they hadn't reached yet, walls that hadn't been opened. Maria stood in apartment 4B one final time before the unit was sealed for evidence processing. The stripped section of wall gaped open now. Exposed lath and old blood dried the color of rust. Outside, rain had started again, tapping softly against the window like something patient, waiting to be let in. She thought about what Danny had said. People stop looking once the walls are clean. It wasn't a confession. It was closer to a philosophy, the quiet, terrible logic of a man who understood that most people wanted the surface to be enough. A fresh coat of paint. A closed door. A name on a lease that nobody bothered to verify. Maria had spent her career learning not to trust the surface of anything. She pulled the door shut behind her, sealed the crime scene tape across the frame, and walked out into the rain, carrying with her the certainty that somewhere, in some other city, there might already be a new name on a new lease, and a fresh coat of paint drying over something the world had decided not to look at too closely. The end.